As we transition to the new normal, we have left others behind. We need to reimagine and redesign our educational system. With the collective effort of schools, sponsors, and Tagpros learning management system, and core of passionate teachers, we can deliver free education and champion the cause of our students. Together, we would be able to teach, inspire, and serve, because Tagpros believes that education is a right all children deserve.
Howdy, I am Josh Floyd of Fairfax County Public School District. Join and teach here at Tagpros and help us educate American students. Sign up and apply now.
Hello, I'm Ryan Benson, a member of Glasgow Middle School's Math Department. Create your online class with Tagpros and help us educate American students. Sign up and apply now.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our session today. So, I am Celine, grade school teacher and EdTech coach from Xavier School, and I am back once more as your host for today. So, I'd like to welcome everyone back to Tagpros Children live webinar workshops. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. So, this webinar workshop series is brought to you by Tagpros Children in partnership with Tagpros Education, an up-and-coming online K-12 education marketplace where passion takes the lead in learning. This event is also made possible by the Department of Education International Cooperation Office, the Teacher Education Network, and the Next Series. First, we would like to share the good news that we are now holding live classes on our Tagpros platform. So these classes are crafted to help our learners learn new skills and techniques that will help them in their classroom activities. We will be offering more classes in the coming days, and dear participants, you may want to enroll your children in these classes. So please look into the classes that we do have available right now on our Tagpros platform, and keep an eye out as well for the new classes that we will be adding onto it, later on. So definitely we'll be having more options for you as we take on more teachers as well, get more Tagpros teachers. So definitely an opportunity you may want to look into. We are also holding a weekly onboarding for our teacher partners. So if you're interested in becoming a Tagpros teacher or becoming one of our teacher partners, you may want to consider it because our Tagpros teacher partners can look forward to the following benefits. So you can earn while teaching your expertise at your own pace, place, and time. You can also access teacher CPD accredited training and professional development. You'll have the opportunity to participate in international professional learning opportunities in the United States with our official education partners. You will also receive your official certified Tagpros teacher partner badge, and of course, many more other perks as you create and conduct your online classes. So definitely encourage everybody to check that out. You know, if you're a teacher who's passionate about something and you want to teach others about that, you want to let other students know about those particular topics, or you want to try out these different activities, you can definitely sign up and join us as a teacher partner. So to know more about the program, please spend some time and check our education marketplace platform, which is at tagpros.us. So you can sign up there as a teacher partner, as well as look into the different classes that I mentioned earlier that you might want your students to enroll into, or if you have kids, that might be something you want to consider as well. All right, so I think we will be flashing the classes on screen. All right, so we do have a couple of classes that we have available on the platform right now. So one such example would be this one, the game development using Roblox Studio. That might be something that your kids are interested in, especially if they are, very much into gaming or gamified learning. So you can teach your kids, or your kids can learn how to develop their own games using Roblox. And nowadays, a lot of kids really like to play Roblox. It's a very popular platform among them. So I think this is something that, they'd be very much interested in, and something that they'll want to probably pick up on or kind of learn with. So yeah, we definitely have even more classes as well that are available on the site. Okay, now, before we start out our session for today, we will have a quick attendance check first. So for our participants who are watching this live, please definitely shout out where you're watching from right now. Where are you in the Philippines? Or for our international viewers, let us know what country you're watching from. We'd love to know. All right, so we have from Kidapawan City. All right, good morning, Miss April. Okay, we also have a couple from other parts of the country. Another from Lucena City, we have Rasha. Good morning. School Division of Zamboanga del Norte. Okay, so good morning, teachers. From Camarines Sur as well. I believe earlier I also saw some people from, there we go, Agusan del Sur. Okay, so we have people from all over the Philippines tuning in today. Pangasinan, Region 1, good morning. Thank you so much for spending the time with us this morning, or spending the day with us. Okay, we also have from San Pablo City, Laguna, from the Philippines. All right, so a lot of teachers from all over the country. Oh, Taguig. We have also teachers from NCR. So we are obviously reaching the different corners and parts of our country, which is great to see. It's great to see that we have a lot of teachers who are interested in learning more about the topics that we do present to you. Legazpi City, Albay. Okay, we also have from Cagayan de Oro, Misamis Oriental. Okay, Navotas. All right. So thank you so much, teachers. For those who are tuning in through Facebook or through other platforms, we love that you're here. You're very much welcome to join us, of course, on our webinar today. If you have teacher friends, definitely share this with them as well so that they can learn with us. It might be something that they're interested in, or, just get them excited about the opportunities that we also have for them on Tagpros. Okay, so now that we've seen where our teachers are watching from, again, welcome everybody. As always, just a reminder that please practice responsible digital citizenship and refrain from sharing any personal information in the comment section. That would include your email as well as your contact number. Please also remember to be civil to one another in the comment section. And a gentle reminder as well to everybody that registering for our webinar workshop or just watching the webinar workshop does not make you eligible for a digital certificate. So it's not automatic that if you register, you will get one. If you do want to receive a digital certificate, however, for our webinar workshops, you have to answer the evaluation forms that we release after every session. So right after the session, later on, after our speaker is done with her presentation and after we do our Q&A, we will be posting the link for the evaluation form in the comment section. So please stick around for that. After we open the form, you only have a week to answer it before we close it on Friday at 11:59 p.m. So please do make sure that you answer the form as soon as you can so that you don't miss out on the chance to get your certificate. If you miss this deadline, you will unfortunately no longer be able to access it or answer the evaluation form, even if you did register and join the webinar session. So just a quick reminder for everybody. We hope that you understand and remember this, of course. Thank you so much, everybody. All right, so I won't keep everyone waiting anymore. Let us meet our guest resource speaker for today. So our resource speaker for today is an EdTech trainer and consultant. She also serves as the Computer Education Department Chair of Xavier School in San Juan. She conducts seminars and workshops for students and teachers in her home country as well as abroad. Aside from teaching and guiding her teachers, she spends also her free time bonding with her family. In our increasingly technological environment, there are many benefits that can be gained from exposing your child to coding and robotics. So for today, let us all give a warm welcome to our speaker, Ms. Jessica Demegillo, as she explains to us the benefits that our young children can learn from this topic. So she will share with us today a brand new webinar entitled Beep Morph, Why Let Your Kids Study Coding and Robotics. Let's give Miss Jessica our virtual applause. All right, welcome, Miss Jess.
Hi, Celine. Thank you. Let me just check if I can share my screen before I start. Okay. How is everyone today? Thank you for inviting me to be part of this particular webinar. I'm actually very excited. And I know that this particular topic is one of my favorites as well. So let me just find a way to share because I can't seem to find my file. Okay. So first things first, hi everyone. Thank you for joining me. And thank you also for giving me a chance to be able to share with you what I know about robotics and coding. So as mentioned by Celine, I am Jessica Demegillo. I'm currently the head of the Computer Education Department of Xavier School San Juan. And also, I've taught for 26 years. Imagine 26 years. Wow. Okay. So I'm glad that today is a Saturday, but I can see a lot of you joining us today. And of course, we also want to be able to share with you what we know about certain things. Okay. So let me just again check. Just wait there. Can you say hi and where you're watching from so I know how is everyone doing? Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me. And what else are you doing aside from listening to me this morning? Are you actually trying to cook while you're watching the webinar, or what are you currently doing? Are you parents or teachers? Can you say also what particular things you're doing and what keeps you busy nowadays? Okay. So sorry if it takes time for me to be able to do this. Okay. Okay. So there are people from different parts. Calabarzon, Quezon Province, Cagayan de Oro, and Iloilo. Okay. There, I saw my screen. Thank you. Okay. Celine, sorry. I can't seem to share. I've
Yes.
chosen sorry, I've chosen slide window, but I think I'll have to select my slides first, correct?
Yes, sure.
Okay. I don't know why this is happening to me right now. I've
It's
tried this a
okay,
couple of
Celine.
times.
It happens,
There.
sure. Our audience knows that technical difficulties
I know,
arise
right?
all the time.
I keep selecting percent share screen and then I selected window and it says restart Chrome. And if I do that, I'll restart everything. So take it away first. I'll try to
All
restart
right.
and see if it works.
No problem, Miss Je. Okay, we'll wait for Miss Je to just deal with the technical difficulties that she's having. As you know, dear watchers, sometimes this is just something we can't avoid. And even the most prepared teachers, even the most experienced teachers will eventually encounter these things. So it's perfectly fine. We're also here to let you know, as educators ourselves, we're here to reassure you that if these things happen to you also, it's nothing to worry about and it's nothing to panic over. So we'll spend some time first to maybe check in on everybody. Let us know. Okay, here we go. More shout outs from our comment section. Okay, Kidapawan City. I do wonder if we have any international viewers today. Sometimes you do get people from other parts of the world. Okay, Cavite, thank you for letting us know. Okay, I do see some people who are telling us that they're watching while doing other activities. Okay, so cleaning while listening. Definitely, that's the great thing about webinars or things like this is that you can watch it remotely, you can watch it at home, and whatever it is that you're doing, whatever other activities you have, you can still listen in. You're not missing out on anything. If, since we're teachers, that's something where it's kind of hard for us to shake that, the, the need to kind of multitask as well. So if you're doing something else, if you're cooking, you're cleaning, definitely feel free to do that while listening. All right, Miss Jess is back.
So funny. On a Saturday morning. I'm back. Okay.
All
Okay.
right.
I think my slides are there already. Oh, yes.
Yes, okay.
Okay, thank you, Celine. I
Sure.
take it from here. Okay. Hi everyone again. Good morning and welcome to the session entitled Beep Morph: Why Let Your Kids Study Coding and Robotics. It's funny because I was so excited this morning to be able to share with you about coding and robotics, and with all the technical difficulties I encountered, I thought my energy would go down. I'm glad it's not yet going down for now. Okay. So again, welcome to the session. I've introduced myself a while ago while fixing all those things and sharing my screen. So if you want to know more about coding and robotics later on, I'll display my email again. But for now, um, as I've mentioned, I'm a computer education teacher as well. And I guess one of the more important aspects of my life is being a mother to Yana, who's now in grade 10. And of course, since the topic is basically talking about kids, and as parents and teachers, we want to be able to know why we want to do things. I think I am very much aware of the things that we have to take into consideration when we're learning something new. And for this particular morning, I hope that my session will give you an idea on how important coding and robotics is. Okay. So, since we're talking about coding and robotics as well, I'd also like to discuss first what coding and robotics really mean. So, let's define coding. So, when we say coding, we're talking about the process of transforming ideas, solutions, and instructions into the language that the computer can understand. So, what is this particular language? It's called binary machine code. So computers don't actually understand other languages except the binary machine code. So if you are a coder, it's easy to somewhat like analyze these particular things. But if you're not into coding or programming or robotics, sometimes you think, how can a person convert hit the instructions that he wants some program to do or a robot to do. So this is what actually happens when we do coding. Okay. So when we talk about robotics, we're also talking about the technology of dealing with design, construction, and operation of robots in automation. So throughout the session, I hope I'll be able to discuss with you the things, the magical things actually that happens when we talk about robotics. And of course, on the side, coding as well. So let me start with describing what happens in a coding class. As a computer teacher, sometimes people um, have difficulty understanding what particular aspects of coding is easy to do or difficult to do, because for them it's and the entire thing is difficult. But to be honest, anyone can code. Before it was too difficult to code, but now you don't need to have difficulty in coding because there are a lot of things that are available when you want to learn about coding. So what happens in a coding class? First, we define a problem. Every program that we do, we actually think of the problem in mind, meaning we're actually looking for a solution to that problem. So the second stage is actually planning the solution. We all already know the problem. Therefore, the next step is to find the solution to be able to answer the problem. The third step, after we have given different ideas and solutions, is actually coding the program. How are we supposed to construct a program that will hopefully solve the problem that we have learned about? And then once the program is done, we are going to test the program. So testing of the program can be done in multiple ways. So you can either test the program on your own, or second, you can also test the program using someone else's idea or perspective. So for example, you ask your friend or someone else to look at your program and say, what are the things that you think I should change in the program? And why do you think I should change it? Or do you think this particular program will solve this problem? So with that, you're given another perspective of answering that particular problem. And after going through all the four stages, we should never forget that we have to document both the program that we're doing and the entire stage or the entire process that we did to answer this particular problem. So, with that, that's only coding. And we're not yet even talking about robotics. Okay. So see, it's it has a lot of stages, but you already know that this particular stage will not only make that person learn about coding, but actually will make that person gain skills that are needed, not just for coding. Okay. So how about our robotics classes? What actually happens when we talk about robotics? So when we talk about robotics, we have three different stages that we go through when we talk about the robotics classes. First, we do design. So when we do design, we have this particular questions that the students need to ask themselves so that they'll be able to design well this particular robot. So, what are the questions? First, what is your design? Second, who are you designing for? And third, why are you designing it that way? Because it's very important to understand why the robot is going to be made and what the robot is going to be made out of. So, with that, after you are able to think of the design of the robot, taking into consideration all the other aspects, you go to assembly. In assembly, what we're talking about here is that we're going to answer which particular parts are needed to make the robot. We're also going to check what particular elements do these particular parts contain, or what should be the parts be made of. And then the third one is what is the most effective way to make it? Because of course, it takes a lot of time for you to actually make something. And sometimes I've been observing our students, it takes a lot of time for them to actually tinker on things because everything now is instant, ready made. So tinkering is one of the things that they need to improve on. Third is after assembling the robot, of course, we go through the actual operation or making sure that the robot is operating well. So what are the questions that we ask when we talk about operation? We think about how will the parts move? Are the parts actually working well or moving well? Second, what additional parts should be added? For example, you already made your robot and you think that not all the parts are present. So, what should be added on those particular parts? Third, how do you make the parts work properly? Do they need to move at a particular position, direction, things like that? And then the last one is what code should we use to run the task or to run or to make the program work or make the robot move. So, since we are asking the last question, what code should be used to run the task? It also gives you an idea that coding is part of robotics. So it actually does not. These are two topics that are very much connected to each other. So a student not only undergoes learning about robots, but also is able to deepen his or her knowledge towards coding. So let me just check if you can watch this particular video about how coding and a robotics class is happening in a typical class and what are the things that each particular student experiences when they do coding and robotics.
You could do it like that, or you could do it to the top here, so that way the hub would be on the outside. It was something completely new for me. It was something that I never heard about before, especially heard about kids being able to do, and it was really hard, which was something that was exciting for me, a challenge.
One of the things that makes robotics an ideal thing for young people to do is that child obeying the parent's command is a real thrill. When you first see someone build something, they put it together, you may wiggle the joysticks. Oh, it works! It works!
I think the fact that I'm kind of a stubborn person contributed to me being a good robotics engineer. When I see a problem, I want to find a solution. I want to figure it out. And if I run into a few failures on the way, I'm not going to let that stand in my way. I'm going to keep trying at it, keep going until I find the solution. Just feel over all of the little pieces back here to make sure that none of them are loose or sticking out a little bit.
Okay, so that's an example of a robotics class.
You could do it.
And if you think about it, and if you actually watch through all the scenes in the video or on the video, you'll know that these particular skills are present in just that particular clip. And you'll know exactly that the skills that are experiencing are very much needed to be globally competitive nowadays, right? So, what were the skills, or what are the normal or the usual skills that you learn from coding and robotics? There's collaboration, Obviously, you have to work together to be able to solve a problem or to be able to do the task or to be able to attain your goal or your mission. Second, you should be able to communicate. Okay, when we talk about communication, we're not just talking about you communicating with your group mates or people um, who you're working with. You're also talking about your communication with the robot, because we know that whatever you input on that particular robot or or whatever you type on the codes will affect the entire output. They say it's garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you put a wrong code or syntax on your computer or on your program, then everything will not work fine. Next is self reliance. We all know that it takes a lot of, um, how do you say it? Takes a lot of confidence, courage, and determination. And of course, you believing in yourself to be able to solve a mission or to be able to achieve a goal when you do coding and robotics. And I think the most important skill, and actually it's a value that that you will experience when you do coding and robotics, is patience. It takes a lot of time, that's lot of trial and errors for you to actually accomplish something. So sometimes this is one of the things that we have to take into consideration when we do coding and robotics. Students nowadays sometimes lack patience to do things because, as I've mentioned a while ago, it's basically just them wanting instant solutions and instant outputs or results. And we want to be able to go through the process, try each and every step before making sure, or so that we are able to assess and also make sure that all the lines in the codes that we are inputting will work fine and the robot will work properly as well. Okay, so of course, it doesn't just end there. There are also a lot of other skills that you will be able to learn with coding and robotics. You go through abstract and analytical thinking process, or the processes that you undergo through are abstract and analytical thinking. Those particular skills are also important. You also develop your logical and thinking and reasoning skills. You do critical thinking. You do problem solving skills. And because we're talking about coding and robotics, you have to really be innovative to be able to accomplish a goal or an objective. Okay. So aside from the skills, we also have particular values that you will learn when you do coding and robotics. So you get to be creative because there are a lot of ideas that will come out of your minds, and hopefully you can convert those ideas into actual programs, or you can use those ideas to make your robots work. And then of course there's determination, as I've mentioned a while ago. You have to be sure that you're going to accomplish the mission and the goal that you are asked to do. Your program should work to be able to accomplish a task. Therefore, there should be determination and hard work in you to be able to do this. And of course, we want to be able to have meaningful work. Everything that we do, not just the students, even the teachers, should be um, somewhat essential in making sure that they are prepared for the future. And then of course you have to be bold. You have to be risky when you do coding and robotics. Well, sometimes there are things that we are not prepared for. Maybe your robot was supposed to, for example, move straight, but then it moves to the left. But that particular movement will make it easier for that robot to accomplish a task. Will you select the one? Will you change your program so it will go straight, or will you risk it and use the new solution you made to actually be able to accomplish your task faster and quicker? So things like that. Of course, it's also nice to be able to use your curiosity to achieve a particular task or mission. And if you're curious, meaning if you're doing coding, because there are a lot of coding that happens, for example, even if there's only one problem. So, for example, you're given a problem, but you can have multiple solutions to that problem. So, when you are curious and you want to be able to try all those particular solutions, you'll be able to discover that in one of the solutions that you've tried, maybe there's one that would best suit that particular problem. And the last value, I think, and or for me, the most important is empathy. Because everything that you do will always boil down to, or will always be because of someone else. We're solving a problem because that particular problem came from someone, and that someone will be the reason why we do the solution. So when we put our shoes into another person's shoes, or when we try to understand and empathize that particular person's problem, we will be able to create better solutions. And with that, we're supposed to use those particular solutions into coding and robotics. Okay. So I've discussed a lot of skills and values that you learn when you do coding and robotics. And with that only, I hope that that will convince you that it really is a must to learn or to study coding and robotics. The usual question that people would ask me is, what if he's not interested with coding and robotics? Or sometimes when I think when I was younger, people would always say, yung coding and robotics are for nerds only. Or they would say it's only for those who are really intelligent because it's hard to understand, or maybe it takes a lot of time for them to understand it. But that has changed. And for me, I think it doesn't really matter if you're interested or not initially on coding and robotics, as long as when I ask you now, are you willing to do it? The willingness is more important. And if you have the motivation to actually learn it, then you'll be able to go through and experience all the skills and values that I've listed here in this particular slide. Okay. So, in general, what are the benefits of robotics? So, it can be a launching pad to realize your passions. Are you into robotics, or are there other things that you're interested in? Robotics is also a good way to create leaders. A while ago, when I showed you the video, you'll see there that we do robotics with in groups. Therefore, it also gives the students a chance to learn more about leading, about being a follower, about responsibility when we do group work. Robotics also teaches essential teamwork skills because, as I've mentioned a while ago, sometimes if you have different ideas and you don't really, or you're not able to find one idea that you think would be more beneficial, then it will create chaos in your team, right? So, therefore, also part of being in a team is accepting, or maybe not just accepting, but making sure that the solution that you select as a group will eventually be the best solution that will answer the problem. Robotics can also teach you how to communicate across different technology platforms. So regardless of what platform we're talking about, robotics will be able to expose you to this particular platforms. And robotics can lead to community involvement. I think this is one of the things that um, gave me inspiration why I like coding and robotics. Because obviously the problems that I encounter and my students encounter when we talk about coding and robotics are very authentic, real life problems, real life situations. And when my students are able to answer this particular problems with their solutions, we are able to not just solve them in the classroom, but hopefully find ways to reach out to the actual, for example, city, to the actual person, to the actual group that will benefit from the solution that we thought of. So I guess it's not just making something, programming something, making or coding something or making robots, but it's basically you understanding that given this technology, coding and robotics, you're able to change someone else's life. Okay. So those are the benefits of robotics. But I guess the next question that we should be answering is, how do I teach my kids coding and robotics? What if they're not interested with coding and robotics? So I'll try to give you a few tips on this particular things, and eventually I hope that you will understand the reason why coding and robotics is important, or coding and robotics are two important topics that your kids should be able to learn. Initially, of course, the first thing that you will ask is, what if they don't know how to code? They haven't tried coding before. So there are a lot of coding apps that are currently available on the market. So these coding apps that I'm showing you are all free. You can download them. Some of them have Android and Apple options, but of course there are other apps that are available that you can also explore. These are basically coding apps that will help you understand how to code in the most simplest way, because sometimes it's too overwhelming to learn about coding, especially if you're not that interested or you're not into coding. But if it's fun and it's a game like type of app, then I'm sure your kids will love it. So you may also get a chance to learn more about the coding apps. All you have to do is search for coding apps that are available online. Okay. But what if your child is interested with robotics in general? So, but you don't have kits to actually start your robotics lessons. So, how would you expose your kids to that? So, there are a lot of websites that are available online as well. So, here's the first one. This is a simple robot website, robot making website, wherein a kid will actually select what particular parts of the robot he needs to add to be able to achieve a particular task. So, for example, the child wants to, the task is to to have a nail on a wall, or to nail a particular wall with something else. Okay, to put a nail on a particular wall, and then what are you supposed to do to make it easier for you to put that nail on the wall? So you will have to decide what particular part will a hand help in putting that nail on the wall, or would the hammer help? So those decisions will help your child explore the different parts of your robot. Okay. So the next example is more of a, maybe this is for grades 4 up. You can um, learn about VEX robots. There's an actual VEX kit, but if you don't have that, there's a simulator on this website where you can try coding using blocks, and you can make your robot run the program and view it using this just your computer. So this is also another way of learning about robotics. You can also try thinker.com, which is also good for coding for kids and teens. It's also a good way for them to try out coding and see how it looks like after coding something. Okay, this is also easy to do. I think doesn't really matter what age you want to try coding, as long as you're able to do the different stages and you're able to learn about it. Okay, so I think there is no actual age wherein coding needs to start, or learning about coding when you want to learn about coding. All you need to do is to check what available apps and websites are there, and then maybe try it out, and you see and see how fast or what particular levels will your kids need to be able to learn about it more. There's also Scratch, which is one of the more popular types of coding that is available. It's also for free. There are also lessons that you can look into when you go to this particular websites. So I guess if you think about it, there are a lot of things that you will learn when you do coding and robotics. But if, for example, you're not yet ready to actually code and do robotics with your kids, or the kids are not that um, motivated to learn about it yet? Do you stop them from learning about coding and robotics altogether? Actually, no. There are a lot of things that you can do to expose your kids towards coding and robotics. So the first thing that you should do, even if they don't want to actually start coding and do robotics, is for them to experience offline coding. What we call it, what we usually call it is unplugged, because you're unplugging from technology. So these are activities that you do outside the usual coding environment, or when you don't have technology with you. Okay, so what are the things that we can do? First, we can actually try to answer brain teasers. A while ago, I showed you, let me just increase the size of my slide. I showed you a lot of skills that you will be able to learn when you do coding and robotics. And one of that and that particular list will help you somewhat understand the importance of coding and robotics. But if you're not that interested yet about coding and robotics, let's go through different activities that you can try to be able to do coding and robotics. So this is called Rebus. It's a picture representation of a name, work, or a phrase that will help you, uh, that will tease your brain actually, and give you a chance to train it so that you'll be able to analyze things and everything else. Okay. So if you're watching right now and you're seeing the first rebus, could you use the chat box and give me an answer on this particular question or brain teaser? Okay. So let me see if you are actually looking at it. So if you look at this slide, you'll actually maybe sometimes it's difficult to analyze what it means, right? So this is a brain teaser wherein you're going to think of a phrase that will reveal the answer of when you look at how it looks like, you'll be able to reveal the answer. So I think Myla Kalyada was able to answer it. Forgive and forget. Correct. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. What do you think this particular phrase is? Thank you, Rasha, for answering a while ago. Okay, so let's go to this slide. Celine and the others, you can also try answering if you want. Um, so, what do you think is a famous statement or phrase for this one? So, I saw Celine's answer, correct? So this is someone answered invaders. Yes, but you're missing one particular word. Because if you look at the actual slide, there is a space between they and theirs. So you have to add a sentence towards it. So it's space invaders. Okay. Okay, let's move on to the next. How about this one? A little cheesy, but it's a good brain teaser nonetheless. Okay. So what do you think is this one? If you were to decode this particular brain teaser. Okay. Okay. So for this particular example, you take a look at the slide and you will see a lot of letters, actually all the letters of the alphabet, but one is missing. Okay, Myla, you're correct. It's missing you. Wow. Ang cheesy. Okay. So let's move on to the next slide. How about this particular slide? What do you think about it? Okay, you can write your answers again on the chat box. This is a famous phrase, I think, for us who are yuppies. Wow, yuppies. Parang hindi naman na ako yuppies. Okay. Okay. Gusto ko yung inside job. Pero kasi dalawa yung job. There are two jobs there that are mentioned. So therefore, it's not inside job. So maybe another term. What other things do you think can you bring out in this particular statement? Okay. So it might because there's a delay in the actual live stream. So let me just let me just answer this one in between jobs. Okay? Okay, let's move on to the next. How about this? What do you think is the meaning of this particular rebus? Okay. For this one, I think it's also very easy because it's a famous phrase. Okay, when you're able to do it. Ayon, thanks Glenn for answering. It's head over heels. Okay, so these are brain teasers that you can use for motivation either inside the classroom or for parents, for example, before you begin a particular task for your kids. These brain teasers will help them analyze certain graphical representations, right? So you'll be able to understand what these are. Um, and it's really funny because even adults have a hard time analyzing these kinds of things. You'll have to get used to how it looks like and the position of everything else, right? Before you answer something. So this is one of the things that you can use or that you can do to expose your kids towards coding and robotics. Okay. So when I was a teenager, I think this is one of the more famous games that we used to play in the province. It's called going on a trip. What we usually do is we gather together and then we tell each other, I'm going on a trip and I'm going to, for example, India. I'm packing something. I'm bringing an ice pack because maybe it's too hot there and I might need it. Okay. So since I'm going to India, since let me try it in Filipino, so it's more challenging and exciting. Pupunta ako sa India, magdadala ako ng ice pack. Sinong sasama? So that's initially how this game starts. And then people would answer depending on the clues that I give. Since I'm bringing an ice pack, what do you think should you bring so that you can join me in the trip, in that particular trip, right? So you can chat also your suggestions if you want to join me in India. I don't know if you remember this game, but when I was younger, this is one of the games that we usually played. Okay. So this is actually a game which will help you analyze the situation. So there's a place that I'm going. It's called India, and I'm going to bring something which is an ice pack. Girly says chili. Sorry, girly, you won't join me. How about the others? Can you suggest any item that you will bring so that I can tell you if you can join me or not? Sige. What other things will you bring to India? Alphabetically arranged? Which one is alphabetically arranged? What will you bring? Diaper. Hmm. You may join me, but after another person gives me an item, girly, because I'm waiting for one more. Ayun, Fe answered, I will bring a needle. Okay, Fe, good job. You're joining me. Sasama ka kasi magdadala ka ng needle. So, I will bring an ice pack. Fe will bring a needle. Girly will bring a diaper. And then Girly will bring an ink as well. Good job, Girly. And the last person who will join me, what will you bring? Trend GV umbrella? I don't think you will be joining me. One more. One more person who can join me for this particular activity, who will join me for the trip. So we have an ice pack. Okay? Someone will bring a needle. Papayagan ba tayo? Pag nilagay natin siguro sa... Okay? Okay? And then someone will bring a diaper. I hope it's not for me. And then someone will bring an ink. And someone will bring an apple. Correct. So if you were to analyze the items that we will be bringing, you'll actually discover that it spells out the name of the country we were going to, and that is India. Okay? So when you do this game, you have to think of different, somewhat like different ways wherein you can give clues to challenge your students or your child. So in this particular activity, you only not let them analyze the problem, but also you give them particular clues where they can think of possible solutions. So this is a good activity for coding and robotics. Okay. Thank you for joining that particular game. Yan. Thanks, Glenn. Yes. So yon, India. So I just spelled out the letters and the corresponding equivalent of the items that were mentioned. So another activity that you can do is this particular bracelet making um, activity. So this is very simple and also very cheap, right? You don't need a lot of materials to do this. All they have to do is to look for three colored beads, and then they're going to write their names in binary. So beside the photo, you'll see the ASCII binary alphabet. Because the computer only understands um, zeros and ones, we're going to let the child understand how this happens, or we're going to expose or let them experience how it is when a computer actually runs machine language. So we're going to, for example, make a bracelet in binary, and you're going to think of um, color representation of those particular colors. So, for example, for one, you're going to use black. Every time there is a one in your binary alphabet, you're going to use black. And then second, you're going to use maybe red for zeros, and another color to just separate zeros and ones. And then you're going to ask your child to actually create the bracelet based on the ASCII codes that they will see. So with this particular activity, what you're teaching your kids are somewhat like how to sequence binary numbers or the ASCII codes, and then you're also um, giving them somewhat an exposure on how machine language is done. So your computer converts everything into zeros and ones. So those are the things that you can talk about as well. Next, if you can see here, this particular photo will also give you somewhat like a good way to learn about coding and robotics. On the photo, you'll see that there are squares there wherein you can put somewhat like different obstacles in the squares, and your child will be the one to command you, or will be the one to direct you to move from one square to another. So the goal is for you to not reach those particular obstacles, or else something will happen. So for this particular example, the child actually has a water gun, so that when um, the adult goes to the obstacles, then it's somewhat like a failure in the code or command. So this is also a good way to do robotics or coding in general. I know most of us have this particular toy at home, and it's also a good way to try coding and robotics. If you're not sure if your child is interested into coding and robotics, it's a good way to actually let them experience. So with this particular example, you just have the magnetic squares, you put them together, and then maybe you have logos or the toys that you can put in different areas, and then there's a start area or a start square and then a finish square. So the goal is for you to move from one square to another and making sure to be able to navigate towards the finish line, um, and not be able to get stuck in a particular area or a particular obstacle. So what do they learn with this particular example? So there are three things that you go through when you talk about coding and robotics, and these are algorithms, sequencing, and debugging. So when we talk about algorithms, we're talking about a set of instructions that the computer will do or execute. So these are just tasks that you want them to do, like turn on something, turn off something, move towards something, things like that. The second one is sequencing, wherein the sequence of the task is as important as the actual task itself or the actual code itself. Because if they're not sequenced properly, if one is supposed to be somewhere else, then the code will not work properly. And the last one is debugging. It gives you a chance to fix mistakes. For example, if you entered or inputted a wrong sequence or maybe a wrong code. Okay. Another simple activity would be connecting dots. You just have dots, and given three different arrows only, you are supposed to move from one position to another. So that's also one way you can do coding and robotics. Please remember that I'm not using any technology here. So if you're not that convinced yet that you don't need to have technology to actually do coding and robotics, this is one of the easier way to do it. Okay. So you can also have worksheets from different websites that you can use. So these are examples of worksheets that you can download all for free and for the students to try out so that they'll know about coding and robotics. Okay. This is also a more complicated coding and robotics worksheet, but it actually is showing you how block programming is done on an actual app or program. But this one, all you need to do is to write the program itself, and it gives you already an idea on what coding and robotics is. You can also print out this sample worksheet, or you can maybe for our school, what we did was to print this in a bigger paper so that the students will be the one to lead their classmates to move from start and to reach to the end. So there are only three codes that they need to use: turn left, turn right, and go forward. So imagine this particular game wherein a student is giving codes or commands to his fellow classmates. That's been one of the more enjoyable or fun thing that we did for kinder students last time. Okay. So of course, when we talk about coding and robotics, we're talking about critical thinking, resourcefulness, and creativity. And with those, we want to be able to let our students experience them or let our kids experience this. Okay. And how do we do it? So for this particular examples, you'll be able to understand that coding and robotics doesn't stop with just coding and robotics. There are other things that you will be able to explore with coding and robotics. Okay. So let me introduce you STEAM. STEAM is um, a particular process or subject in school wherein we talk about science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So these are engineering practices that teach students to solve problems by designing, creating, and justifying their design. So when we talk about coding and robotics, we can incorporate coding and robotics towards STEAM. And if you're thinking, how can I make my son or daughter be interested in coding? What can he or she do towards this particular thing? Okay, so let me just go over STEAM. So as I've mentioned, it's about science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. Before, these particular subjects were separate, right? Or it wasn't that popular when we combined them together because originally it was just STEM, But now we added arts because we all know it's just not just designing prototype that we want them to be able to do, because there's art in everything that we do. So when we talk about art, it's not just how it looks like, aesthetically pleasing and things like that. It also talks about the value of the art that we create, and the essence of creation. Okay, so how do we start or maybe sustain STEAM initiatives in our kids? Because maybe you'll be asking, how do I convince my kid to try STEAM, coding, and robotics? So here are things that you can do. You can do a maker. You try to be part of the maker movement. So since we know that coding is how humans are able to talk with computers, we also know that the maker movement will help you and coding work together. Here are the activities that you can do. So first, you can go to websites that promote making or creation. So here is an example of a website that actually uses different ways to help your students or your sons or or your children in general make things. Because as I've mentioned a while ago, it's basically more of um, buying something and it's instantly there. So when I was, I think, a child, I enjoy creating things out of the things that are available at home. So here is a very good way to do that. So this particular website has a lot of examples of the maker movement or of maker space. So when we say maker space, you have an actual activity that the child will do and produce an output based on the activity or based on the problem. So here is an example. Here are the examples of those particular um, maker space activities. So, for example, you're going to ask your child to create a solar system, a mobile solar system, and you will see that this particular elements need not be expensive. Diba? You can use paper, you can use cotton, and all the other things. And when you ask them to do these things, they undergo this particular skills. So you're able to solve the problem that you want them to do. They can be resourceful and creative. Resourceful because not everything is available at, at in the house, so they have to find a way or think of an alternative, for example. And of course, they have to be self-reliant and patient to be able to accomplish the task. So here is the actual website. You will see that there are step-by-step instructions as well, or you can actually look at the projects and see what outputs. So they have simple to complex activities that your kids will be able to use. So here are some of the examples. So there's a dancing puppet. The dancing puppet can be a startup activity for robotics. So if you were to design a dancing robot, how will it look like? Things like that. Okay. And then this one is a balance sculpture. They have to be able to balance both sides. You can use this a lot of maybe paper slang and wires to do this. And this one is the brush bot, a robot made out of the usual brush that we use for the kitchen or the comfort room. And we want them, for example, to design a robot that will help clean the house. Wow, that would be perfect for me. Okay. So you can also look for websites wherein there are available games that the students can use or your kids can use. So this is an example of this one, of the games that I'm talking about. So there are a lot of games here, games that are both educational but extremely fun. Diba? Educational path, educational na fun pa. I think that's one thing that you should remember. And then to give you an example, here is how it looks like. Okay. This is about atoms. So, for example, your child is learning about atoms. There's an actual program or app that you can use or game that you can use to deepen the learning towards it. Or you can have an actual circuit construction kit. They learn about circuits and also about robotics. So this is a good example of the game that is found in Brain Pop. You can also look for this website. But of course, we also want to be able to move from that particular lesson or that particular aspect of or those activities to a more detailed activity or a deeper experience for your kids. So in school, we have project-based learning wherein the students are able to make a big project based on something that they want to be able to accomplish. Okay, so they find different solutions. Let me,
Boys and girls, what is inside of this bag? Air. You're going to see convection at its best.
Now that we are a STEAM school, using project-based learning as our primary instructional strategy, we see our students exceeding at the highest levels. They're interested in what's happening in the world. They're interested in their own learning and how they're going to apply that.
So here at Charles Drew Charter School, we are a STEAM school with an emphasis on science, technology, engineering, the arts, and math. Our kids not only get the regular curriculum, but they also have classes, science lab with me, robotics, engineering, art, chorus, band.
This is called a
I'm taking dance and orchestra right now.
I like technology too. I like science, and I like to learn about how things work.
Well, for us, project-based learning and STEAM can't really be separated.
Instead of teaching these skills and these disciplines in isolation, we collaborate and work together. Our students are making connections between these disciplines.
We know that the careers that are going to be available are in STEAM fields. We use project-based learning to help our students be successful in those careers.
Project-based learning is not just creating a project. It is not teaching theme units. It's solving a problem. The project is a product that students create in order to solve a problem. It's a project that needs to have an audience and needs to have a lasting impact.
So across the entire building, teams collaborate to plan project-based learning instruction.
So ideally, what we're going to do is look at these essential elements.
We focus on one project-based learning unit that integrates all of the subject areas each quarter. Teachers work together to look at their standards, look at what's relevant for our students, what's happening in the world, and design a driving question.
I like it a lot because there's like one question, one big picture. I like big pictures. But I also like that you can like ask little questions within the big question. A big standard in third grade is teaching about heat. We wanted to see if students could figure out a problem within their community that they could solve using heat. We immediately thought of snowpocalypse. Heat played an important role, whether it was related to the weather or how Atlantans coped. It was just coldness and snow and ice. And so heat plays a really good part to keep us warm.
We eventually arrived at the question of how can we better prepare for Atlanta's changing weather.
We went in this direction because we knew that it affected a lot of their families, it affected our school.
My students researched the event. I brought in some community members to just share their stories.
We had so many people stranded. We had students who were on the bus 10, 11 o'clock at night. And we was trying to contact parents just to let them know where their child was.
They couldn't believe some of the stuff they heard. And that, to me, was this very organic way that they arrived at this problem and this feeling of, I want to do something about it.
We are going to be thinking of some ways to help Atlantans better prepare for weather like this.
Teachers may have designed a project that's going to guide the students in a direction, but the students have a big role helping to design products that will solve those problems.
My class came up with some type of safety case that would help them if they were stranded. So they'll do certain little mini projects along the way, like a solar oven. They'll talk about insulation. They'll test different materials to see what are good conductors of heat and to see how could these everyday materials fit into your kit.
Wooden spoon, plastic spoon, metal spoon.
Does it feel cold? Does it feel hot?
Feel it.
Record your observation. What about the metal spoon, Destiny?
The metal spoon got hotter.
So that was the hottest. All right, so right
One of the questions that they said that they needed to know was, well, how is heat produced? Mr. Thomas came up with the idea to bring the entire third grade out.
Heat energy can be transferred in how many ways? 3, conduction, radiation, and convection. The heat from the sun will transfer energy to the air inside this bag. Once the molecules in the air inside the bag get warmed up, the solar bag is going to rise into the air.
Our commitment to STEAM has shaped how we do project-based learning here at Tornado. Technology, science, engineering, that all factors into what we're looking for the students to be able to do when they're answering this driving question.
We see our students collaborating naturally to solve problems, not just the ones presented to them by teachers, but the ones that they just face every day.
Okay, so that particular video is from Charles R. Drew's Charter School. As mentioned in that video, it's actually a STEAM project and it uses project-based learning. So it doesn't end with just telling them an actual event that happens in their community. They find solutions to that particular problem. And it doesn't also end there. We can also have a more things that they can do towards technology. For example, if you were to design a program or an app that will make it easier for people to know if there is a snow apocalypse or snow apocalypse that is going to happen, and then what would it be? If you were to create a robot that would help the community with moving from one place to another, how what particular robot or machine would you be developing? So with project based learning and STEAM, the it gives you somewhat like a bigger opportunity to learn more about creating solutions and making a difference in your community. So for example, you were if you were to ask me what careers in coding will your kids be able to get? So here are some of the examples about it. And then you can also think about careers in robotics. Some of them are just new, meaning not it wasn't present before. So these are future jobs and jobs that are most likely to be part of the future. So when you do coding and robotics, I'm sure there are a lot of job opportunities for your kids. Okay. So to end my session, I think I'll leave you with just life quotes on robotics, which I enjoy very much because I think it encompasses what coding and robotics is, or what you experience when you do coding and robotics. The first one is anything worth building is worth building more than once. So we all know when we build something that like the robots, or if we try coding and if it doesn't work, you will have to be able to do it again. You will have to keep trying until it is you're satisfied enough and until you know that that particular code or robot will be able to attain your mission or your goal. Second, sometimes help comes from the unexpected places. When you do coding and robotics, your kid will be able to experience everything when they do collaboration, right? Or when they talk to an adult or someone from the industry and gives, and that particular perspective will give them a deeper meaning on the solutions that they're making. And the last one, things are never as bad as they seem. So we all know that not everything works at first. A while ago, when I started this session, we all know that there were technical difficulties, but that's part of everything, right? We learn from our mistakes. And initially, maybe it's bad for you, but it may be just an initial stage or an initial step for you to be able to accomplish your goal. Okay, so again, thank you. I hope I was able to share with you a lot of things about coding and robotics, and I hope you are also convinced that it's really important to be able to learn and study about coding and robotics. If you have questions, you can email me. My email is flashed on the screen. Um, I think that's it. Okay. So if you have other questions, Celine, can I'll just stop sharing. Maybe we can answer a few. of the questions that are on the screen. Let me just check. Okay.
Miss Jess. Okay, so thank you. Before we proceed to the questions, thank you again, Miss Jess, for sharing your expertise with us. And everybody, let's give her another round of applause. Feel free to send some clapping emojis in the comment section. So we'll be moving to our open forum, and of course, we'll ask Miss Jess to stay with us here on our virtual stage so she can address the questions that you may have about coding and robotics. So Ms. Jess will respond to the questions that you've sent us during the session. But if you do have other questions that you've just thought of right now, feel free to put it in the comment section as well so that we can add it to the list of questions that we will be asking her. So you can continue posting those questions and comments. And I guess we could begin with our first few questions. And Ms. Jess, I think the one of the biggest questions that a lot of teachers would have about coding and robotics is, would it be expensive to actually have this or do this with students, especially if you have like a big group of students that you're teaching?
Actually, no. So, if you were to ask me, there's always an alternative to whatever we have or whatever kits that are available on the market. So, for example, of course, there are more expensive robotics kits that are available. Some of them are range from 40 to 100,000 per kit. We're talking about per kit. So, but there are alternatives. So there are more kits that range from. I just had a training yesterday with students from Bangkok, and they gave us a microbit kit which I searched in Lazada and check if how just to check how much that kit is. So it's around 4,000 only. So it's really not expensive. So if you plan, for example, because you don't need to buy a lot, so you have to just think of a solution wherein, for example, you're about 40 in a class, and you all you need to do is just to divide the class into groups, because as we know very well, um, coding and robotics need to have somewhat like a lot of members to be able to achieve your goal. So, for example, if you plan to create um, an app and a robot at that, so it will be difficult if you're doing it alone, right? So it will be nice if you have a partner or a group of people who can help you attain it. So for me, for example, if you want to start a simple robotics class, you can have around 5 kits or 4 kits, and I think that's enough. Or if you're not don't have a budget yet, I've shown a while ago a lot of websites that have simulators, robotic simulators that you can use. So you can use that as well because it works the same. It's just that you don't have the actual kit. So for example, eventually, if you have budget, then that's the time you can buy.
All right, thank you, Miss Jess. So speaking of that, actually, we some follow up questions on that would be, are there any like places where you would recommend that our teachers can source their materials or their hardware if they want to try out, the coding and robotics on their own?
As I've mentioned, there are a lot actually of companies that sell this product. So I think I can email. You can just email me because there are specific stores that sell it for a cheaper price. Because there are somewhat like what we call branded kits, and there are like generic kits that work the same way. So, but they're not counterfeits. Just to be clear, they're just not branded kits, okay? But they work the same. So, for example, parang siyang generic pharmacy, parang ganon, di ba? Parang generic siya. So there are a lot of things like that, and they work the same way. Of course, there are more sophisticated kits, but if it works the same way and if you learn the same skills, it doesn't really matter.
All right. How about Miss J? If like let's say the DIY materials, is it recommended for students to try out robotics with doing DIY? Like for example, we see videos of people trying out or creating like these simple robots using things like rubber bands or even the cardboard cores of tissue rolls. So is that recommended or do we discourage that?
No, we should encourage students, kids doing that. As I mentioned a while ago, nung bata ako, parang matchbox lang Masaya ka na, 'di ba? Or cardboard lang na galing sa box
Mm-mm.
of somewhere, cardboard or yung boxes ng sapatos, 'di ba? And these are actual this is part of the stage of robotics. It's prototyping. And then once you convert that prototype into an actual working product, um, then you're able to achieve the end goal. So for example, another way to do it is, for example, you have an actual robot kit, but the kit is just the basic one. So for example, the wheels are there, the actual motherboard is there, or the actual brain of the robot is there, and then all you need to do is to make a house um, of that particular robot. So it looks like an actual car, maybe convert it into a car, convert it into an actual robot with hands, things like that. So these are important stages for the kids or the students to be able to undergo so that they'll be learning more about robotics. So yes, yes, please do. Dapat may maker movement talaga. That,
Yes.
'di ba? Ibalik natin 'yan kasi
Mm-mm.
dati I think the generation now haven't really experienced so much of making or tinkering. Yesterday, I we had students who took a lot of time to create a simple robot which should be created in just 10 minutes, but we had around 30 to 45 minutes just to finish it. So why is that? Because they don't have experience with tinkering things, because the toys that they have are all instant, ready made.
Mhm.
So to actually develop it into something, for example, you have a lot of parts and putting them together, it will take a lot of time for them to do it. So let's encourage tinkering or the maker movement so that the skills that they need to produce a better output will be developed.
Okay, thank you, Miss J.
Thank
Now,
you.
yeah, so I agree, no, that we should let our kids start exploring these things again. Have them get used to these hands-on experimenting and then just trying out how to make things work using different materials. With that being said, Miss J, how do you think maybe we can, for our teachers here, of course, not all of them are, let's say, computer or STEM teachers. Is there a way that coding and robotics can actually be integrated into other subjects as well? Like, let's say,
Yes.
math or social studies, things like that.
Oo. I think let's use English for
Hmm.
this. Oo. So for example, you're an English teacher and you want to be able to help in teaching coding and robotics. Because in sentence construction, there's a syntax or a
Mm-hmm.
grammar syntax that they follow. It's the same with coding. So it's very important to use the proper punctuations, the proper capitalizations, the proper naming of particular things. For example, if you name a variable, the first letter should be capitalized. Similar with your English lesson, right? If it's a proper noun, wow, naalala ko pa yata yung lesson ko. Then you have to start it with a capital letter, things like that. So these are similar concepts, but totally different approaches. But if you think about it, they are actually the rules are the same. So, if,
Mm-hmm.
for example, it doesn't really matter what subject you are teaching, um, there is always a robotics or a coding lesson in that subject. So, for example, you're a P teacher and you're teaching them how to shoot a ball. And before he shoots the ball, there should be proper position, tama ba? Stand, or how, and then there should be parang steps. So left foot muna, right foot, and then arc your hand, di ba? And those steps are sequences. And
Mm-hmm.
coding talks about sequence. If mauna yung pag-hook mo ng hand without your proper foot work or movement, magkakamali ka. There will be errors.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to coding, that also happens. If you put the code on a different location in your program, it won't have a hard time. The program won't work, or you will have a hard time. There, I combined those two sentences. I don't know what, but anyway, so things like that. So, for example, if you are well, top of my mind, a social studies teacher, you're talking about events as well, important
Mm-hmm.
events that happened on a particular timeline, right? And in a program, you have to take into consideration what particular events will be the highlight of your program. So, for example, mag-input, you make a program, and then on a click of a button, something will happen. That's an important event. And that is also similar to history or social studies. Wow. Grabe yung connection. But something like that. So it actually is able to give you a good example that the things that we study in coding and robotics actually are the same with the other
Mm-hmm.
subjects. We just have to relate them together so that the students will realize, or our kids will realize, that everything we teach them are connected or are relevant to each other. Things like that. Okay.
That's
Thank you.
very interesting, Miss J. Actually, I think maybe a lot of us here, maybe we haven't realized that teaching other subjects, we've actually already started teaching them about coding and robotics as well. It's good to point out that these concepts are already present as well in the other subjects, and it's more of just like stringing them together or relating them together to one another. All right. So we also will jump here to a question on the perspective or from the perspective of teachers and parents. So of course, the saying that you can't pour from an empty cup. So our teachers and parents, of course, if they want to know to teach their kids coding, maybe they're thinking that they also have to understand coding and robotics themselves. So is that going to be something difficult for them to actually learn on their own, or are then there any other opportunities for teachers and parents to get to know how to do it themselves so that they can teach it to their kids or their students?
So I guess the question would be how much involved will you be when your
Mhm.
kids actually learn coding and robotics? If you want to be by your child or your kid's side when they do coding and robotics, then you have to actually have or exert a lot of effort to learn about it.
Mm.
Because as you mentioned, it's hard to teach someone something that you don't actually understand. So I was talking to my daughter the other day, and she has this particular assignment that I already forgot because how old am I and how young is she? So I won't be able to teach her or help her. So I also realized that if to be able to actually help my child, I have to make an effort to actually learn about it. So it need not be as complicated as being an actual coder and all those things, but the main concept should be um, learned. So for example, you have to know the hardware, you have to
Mhm.
know the software in general, how to turn it on, how to debug and things like that. Just the simple things. Because I'm sure your kid or your student will learn faster than you, maybe 100 times faster. Because of course it takes a lot of time for us adults to learn things now, right? Unlike
Mhm.
before when we were younger, it would be easier for us. So I guess you just have to have the same to understand the same codes or the same terms so that when he or she talks to you about them, you'll know how to answer. Because for me, even if I'm not, for example, an industry coder, someone who codes and creates programs and sells it for a particular product, company or something, I know about coding. So therefore, for example, if a student would ask me a question, is my program okay? I can give him or her an advice. I think your program is not user friendly
Mm.
because it's difficult for me to navigate from one page to another. So
Mhm.
I need not be a coder to actually give an advice like that because I'm a user. So those are two things that we can maybe explore. If you want to be just a user or someone who evaluates the program or who helps your child accomplish a task, or would you want to be a partner in learning coding? So if you are a partner or someone who will work with your child in coding and robotics, then you actually have to exert effort. And there are a lot of free sites that you can go to, a lot of free apps that you can try. Siyempre, doon tayo sa free, di ba? Ayaw naman natin
Yes.
magbabayad pa kasi ang dami naman, sa totoo lang. There are a lot of free um, resources that are available. And these resources are easier to understand compared to before because coding was unattainable. Before, it was pure codes. Now it's just drag and
Mhm.
drop. Imagine you can just drag
Yeah.
and drop things. And what you drag and drop are actually in an English type format type of coding. So when you read it, you'll understand it. It's not the usual coding that we used to use before. So for me, it's easier now to learn about coding and robotics compared to how it started years before. So yes, please do learn because if you want to really help your child with coding and robotics, it's a nice opportunity for ano din bonding, 'di ba? If you want to bond
Yeah.
with your child. So maybe that's a
True.
good chance.
Mhm. Thank you, Miss J. I think that gave our teachers and our parents here who are present a lot of reassurance, I think, on their part that, it's not too late to learn. And then even if you do want to learn, there's plenty of resources available for us now that can actually help us. And even if you have limited knowledge on coding and robotics itself, as a user, we kind of understand as well how it works, even without knowing like the the concepts, the more technical concepts that are involved in it. Okay, we have an observation here from Miss Gurley in the comment section. She said, coding is integrated now in the PETA of students in most subjects. So that's good to
Yay!
know. You showed us also, Ms. J, right earlier, something about design thinking and the PBL, or the project-based learning. So something with PBLs as well is that it does take time. So
Yeah.
does coding need to take a lot of time for us to be able to teach it to the kids, or how much time do you think should be taken up when we do teach them things like coding and robotics?
I guess it depends on what your goal is, what your
Mm-hmm.
mission is. So if you want just the basic things, then we can
Mm-hmm.
just have short courses or short activities that will expose the students or will let them experience coding and robotics. So it can range from 1 to 3 sessions only to an entire
Mm-hmm.
year of coding and robotics. So when we're talking about an entire year, then you can apply project-based learning and design thinking, which is what usually happens. Because if you just learn about coding and robotics and not actually apply it into a bigger
Mm-hmm.
scale, sometimes the essence is not there. So for example, you make a robot. So what? What is the robot for? You make
Yeah.
a code, you make a program, but what will that program do? And which
Mm-hmm.
is the more important aspect of coding and robotics? We make them, we do these things because we want to improve on something or we want to solve a problem. And when we attain that particular, we're able to solve that problem. That's the only time coding and robotics is able to achieve also its mission or its goal. So I think it should not stop with just coding and robotics. It should be an application of
Mm-hmm.
coding and robotics when applied to authentic or real life learning, right? Or when we actually go out there and help actual people, that's when coding and robotics, the potential of coding and robotics is achieved. So yes, that's it. So it really doesn't matter how short or how long you plan to do it. I just want everyone to remember that when we use coding and robotics, it should have an end goal and it
Mm-hmm.
should be able to achieve something so that the kid also who's making it won't think like nagpo-program ako na ang tagal-tagal tapos wala naman palang kwenta yung para saan, 'di ba? 'Di ba? So for example, you're coding a website, but the website will not be used for anything. Sometimes you just make
Mm-hmm.
it. So I think it's the process is there, but if it's not able to achieve something, I think that's somewhat like gives you, but it tells you another side of coding and robotics that should not be explored, which is just creating for the sake of making or creating. So let's not do that. Let's do coding and robotics because we know if we learn about it, we will use it in the future, or we can do
Mm-hmm.
something to improve the future. So there.
Okay, I agree with that, Miss Jen, no? That application is a big part of it. I find also with my own students that if the situation they're dealing with is more authentic to them, it sticks with them longer and they're more interested in actually doing it and finding out more on how they can explore it. You did mention that for students, they tend to get frustrated if, they don't get the satisfaction of knowing that their work is not going to be used for anything. And on the topic of frustration, how can we how can we encourage them to keep trying when, for example, they get very frustrated because the things they're trying to make aren't working out. Yung robot niya isn't working the way they want it to, or yung code is not running properly. Kids can get very frustrated. So how do we continue to encourage them to keep trying even though they do encounter these obstacles?
I think we can do two things. The first one is to ask them to stop.
Mm.
Stop what they're doing and think and reflect. Why is this happening? Why is there a problem with my code, or which particular part of the code has bugs in it, or or has errors in it. So sometimes when you step back, I think it also gives you a clearer perspective on what you're currently doing. As a coder, if you have a long list of codes, it's really frustrating to look for the errors. And of course, if you're not that patient or if you tend to give up, it actually is it gives you a different kind of feeling. So I guess the first stage is to stop and to make sure that you reflect on what your goal is. So tingnan mo, what do you need to do? When did the error start? Which part of your program did the error happen? Is there another way to solve the problem? Um, do I need to start over? Because there are times when you need to start over, you have to remove all that. For example, you have 20,000 codes and you have to remove all that and you start over. So maybe that's a better solution for you. So it depends on the person programming or doing the coding. Second, ask help. So maybe as a someone who has tried coding a lot of times and sometimes get too frustrated with what I need to do, it's also nice to ask the help of someone. So it can either be a classmate or maybe your teacher. Because if you are, it's similar to all the things that we do. If you are too into that work, so for example, you're doing a thesis paper and you've been reading that particular page for 100 times, you cannot see errors sometimes, right? Because your mind somewhat like memorizes already the words and you're not able to evaluate it properly. So similar to coding. So when you do coding, there are things that another person can see that you might be able to you weren't able to see. So it's a good way to maybe also stop and ask someone to look at the code and see what's wrong with it, because there are things that we don't know because it's coding. There are the outputs change depending on what particular code we put there. So for example, a simple comma or a simple punctuation, once you put it there, changes the entire thing. So maybe there were things that you added there that should not be there and you can't see it anymore, so you have to ask someone to do it for you. So I guess that those are two basic solutions. There are a lot more, but those are two basic solutions that I can suggest. And also, maybe because you're too frustrated, you can try other things. Like you stop coding first. Maybe you can do other things like tinker into some output that you can do and not do your work
Yeah.
first. 'Di ba? Parang ano, pag sobrang tagal ka na din or you spend too much time into something, a variation would be a good solution as well. So baka pwedeng stop and do something else, or maybe just stop and look somewhere else so that you'll be able to relax your mind and your body and start over again. So there, those are the solutions that I can suggest.
Great words of advice there, Miss Jen. I think those apply not only to coding and to kids, but to us as
True.
adults as well and our work. So very applicable to many situations. All right, Miss Jen, bear with us. We have like two more questions left. If
Wow.
that's okay with you.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
So one is that you mentioned how it's not too early for kids to learn about coding. But what about for kids who, let's say, have special needs? Is coding
Mm.
something that we can introduce to them, or maybe what are ways that are simple enough that we can introduce it to kids who maybe are differently abled or learn in different ways and capacities?
I actually have a friend who
Mm-hmm.
is part of a school in LaSalle Benilde,
Mm-hmm.
who teaches coding with differently abled women, and they are successful coders. So ang saya, 'di ba? Sanang we have I think Jim can invite Leia here and she can talk about it, how nice it is to see it really doesn't matter who you are, what you have, what you can and cannot do, but as long as you're interested with coding, you will be able to achieve it. So yes, there are actually schools, there are actually people who teach those to specially abled people, and it should not discourage you from learning coding. um I think it's a good episode next time so that the
Mm-hmm.
Leia can talk about it. But she actually showed me a lot of videos of this particular women who are part of the industry already, who graduated from Benilde and who are already coders in the industry. So For me, kahit ako na-amaze eh. Kasi 'di ba, we have all different talents. And to
Yes.
find the talent that you're good at,
Mhm.
regardless of um, how differently abled you are, is
Mhm.
already an achievement. And to be able to use that talent and be part of the industry is already also is another achievement. So yes, there are a lot of ways that you can learn about coding. The iPad also has accessibility features that you can use to help you with coding and robotics. You can also explore that, and there are a lot of apps that are too easy or very easy to use that you can explore as well. So it really is a good way to, or you can do offline coding. For
Mhm.
example, if it's difficult for that particular person to actually use technology, you can still teach the skills using offline coding, similar to what I've mentioned a while ago. Because there are people who like to fix things in a sequence, di ba?
Yeah.
I've met a lot of them who like things in order, who likes
Mhm.
colors, and those are perfect um, talents for coding and robotics because we're talking about codes here, we're talking about sequences, we're talking about patterns. And when
Mhm.
we're talking about patterns, that actually gives you parang an extra skill when you're into that, 'di ba? Pag mahilig kang mag-ayos ng mga bagay or OC ka, right? Like me, I'm so OC, so I want things in order. So I think it helps me do robotics and coding more. So don't be discouraged regardless of what things you want to be able to do. These are all attainable as long as you put your heart and mind into it.
Okay, thank you, Miss J. It's great to know that coding is something that's universal. Like you said,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't matter like, how old you are, what your state is, or like what you can and can't do, but anyone can really do it. And that's something great and reassuring to know that, any one of us can actually start trying it out ourselves. And for our last question, Miss J, okay, so you mentioned earlier that coding can actually be very helpful for students, especially in their future. And we do know that, when we teach our kids, we do have their future in mind as well. So what kind of opportunities do you think will be opened up to our students once they do learn about these things, about coding, robotics, and STEM?
Okay. So I guess also two things. If they want to actually pursue coding and robotics and make it a
Mhm.
career, there are a lot of career opportunities here and abroad. So similar to what I've shown a while ago, there are a lot of computer science, computer engineering, STEM courses, and
Mhm.
STEM jobs that are available that have very good compensation. And since we know that that is where our world is actually going
Mhm.
towards, diba? Technology is more and more important nowadays, and there are jobs that we have now or that we will have in the future that are non-existent. And part of being able to be competitive globally is to be able to grab all the skills and the values and the things that you will learn in coding and robotics and use them in the future. So it need not be a career in just coding and robotics. The skills that you will learn will actually help you become globally competitive. So, for example, even if you're not into coding and robotics or a job that is similar to coding and robotics, you can use those. For example, you want to solve a problem,
Mhm.
and the solutions that you produce are from coding and robotics. You'll know, for example, if you own a particular business, on what particular steps you're going to take to be able to solve that problem because you had to go through the design thinking process, you had to go through
Mhm.
PBL, you had to go through the different stages of coding and robotics. So um, similar to all the other subjects that we learn in school, they help in making you equipped and making you, I think, making all your skills develop better or maybe develop yourselves into your full potential to be able to succeed in whatever job that you choose. So really, there are a lot of opportunities now. And of course, as we automate a lot of things in life, the everyday things in
Mhm.
life, and you will see that those particular things are used use programming or coding. and those particular automation have robots in them. It's nice to watch videos in YouTube, and you will see there that the typical robot that we are thinking of is not actually just the robot that has
Yeah.
the normal, but all the other things that we have at home and that you encounter outside have robots in them and machines in them and codes in them. So
Mhm.
the opportunities are endless, I think. So yeah, don't be this is a good opportunity for you to for your kids to develop a lot of things. So just grab them and use the skills and the knowledge that you will learn to either use in the future, so that you'll be able to be you are ready for it.
Thank you so much for that, Miss J. And that wraps up actually our
Yeah.
open forum. Thank you so much for taking the time to answer the questions that we had and giving us some clarity on how we can apply these things and to what extent they are going to be relevant, not only to us as teachers, but also to our students. So, for those of our audience members right now who have other questions, you may forward them to us at Tagpros Education on our Facebook page, and we will try our best to give you the answers that you seek from our guest speaker. So once again, let us thank Miss Je for a very inspiring and informative session this morning. So if you want, you can give her some more applause. You can say your thank yous in the comment section. We really do appreciate her being with us here today and telling us so much and informing us so much about coding and robotics and STEM and all of these wonderful concepts that I think contribute a lot to the way we do things, the way we plan things out as teachers as well, and the kind of future that we want to have for our the kind of future we want our students to have with these things in mind. So before we finally end, I would like to invite you once again to visit our class offerings at tagpros.us. And for our dear parents in the audience, for our teachers as well, who might be parents at the same time, who are participating right now in this webinar, you might want to consider enrolling your students in some of the classes that we have, especially if they take a particular interest in something. So, it's an opportunity for them to learn a new skill, learn something new that they can do that maybe they can apply as well in school or for their future, or just something fun for them to do in their downtime. And for those teachers out there, once again, you may want to be part of our Tagpros teacher partners. Just to reiterate, we do have certain benefits for our teachers who do become teacher partners for Tagpros. So that includes being able to earn while you are teaching. So you can have a class set up where you teach something you're passionate about, something that you are an expert at, and you can teach it at your own pace, place, and time, so that it doesn't get in the way of your regular teaching load as well. You can access teacher CPD accredited training and professional development, so that you can also continue learning on your own and earn those CPD credits that you need, continue to develop yourself professionally. There's also opportunities for our teachers to participate in international professional learning opportunities in the United States with our official education partners. And right now, we're flashing on the screen some of the classes that we're offering on Tagpros that you might want to look into. All right, our teacher partners will also receive an official certified Tagpros teacher partner badge, and once again, many more other perks that we will roll out for you. So take a look at these, see if anything catches your eye or anything is interesting to you or you think your kids or students might be interested in as well. Okay, so to know more about the program, please spend some time and check our education marketplace platform at tagpros.us. And now, of course, tell us your thoughts about today's webinar workshop. We will be sending the evaluation form. And this is your opportunity to let us know how you found our webinar workshop today. Was it helpful? What's something interesting that you took away from this experience and this webinar? Or what things are you looking forward to learning more about in the future? So the link will be on the screen as well as on the comment section. So you may just check that out. And then answering the evaluation form, just a reminder for everybody, you need to answer the evaluation form in order for you to receive your e-certificate for today's webinar workshop. Once again, registering will not guarantee you your certificate, or being present in today's stream will not guarantee your e-certificate. You really do need to evaluate the session and complete the evaluation. You have 1 week to answer the evaluation form so that you can get your e-certificate. So if you're not able to access it right now, or you're not able to answer it right now, don't worry. You have a whole week, and we will be closing it next Friday at 11:59 p.m. We will also be sending out your e-certificates after 2 weeks. So we thank you for your understanding and patience. Right, so that about ends our webinar workshop for today. And we hope to see you again on October 29 for our webinar workshop series. We have more in store for you, so we can't wait to have you back here in the next few weeks. As always, please keep updated with Tagpros Education by following our official social media pages. We have a Facebook page as well as a YouTube page. And once again, you can also check out our Tagpros website. Please make sure to invite your family and friends as well. And again, I'm Celine. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you back here once more in the coming weeks. Thank you, everyone.